Y'all, I just saw something that just disturbed me to my core, and it's been rolling around in my mind since I saw it. And I wanted to present this to you all to see what it is that you think. My question is, how are you going to provide and protect if you are not present and participating? So just a moment ago, I was driving in a new area, minding my business, and I'm listening to the GPS because the GPS is telling me where to go. I'm slowing down to make a left turn when all of a sudden I hear this scream to the right of me. And I look, and what I see is this little pink figure like wriggling, right? And then I saw a woman with it was like a cape. She was like running, right? And she grabbed this little pink figure and started pulling it back. What was happening is there was a child. So I looked over, and when I looked over, I saw the woman going back towards a car, and there was a man there in the back seat. Not in the back seat, standing by the back, you know, the door in the back. So it's like a 4-door, standing in the door in the back, getting things out of the back of the car, right? And he was so unbothered that I thought that it was a cab driver. So now listen, what was happening is, because it all happened so fast, the woman is trying to get the stroller out of the trunk, and she's trying to, you know, man the babies and all this stuff, right? And one of the kids got away from her, or got away from the car. I don't, because by the time I saw it, the child was darting into the street. So the child had gotten away from the vehicle, gotten away from the mother, the parents, or whatever, and darted into the street, running towards the front of what would have been underneath my car, right? I am thankful. I am so relieved that the mother grabbed the child, because the last thing I want to do is run down a baby. That's one of the last things I want to do. Nonetheless, I looked over, and the woman had secured the child, because when I saw, I hollered out myself, because I'm like, oh my goodness, because the child had come so close to getting into the street, right? When I looked back over, the woman was like now holding the child with one hand and trying to get the stroller out of the trunk with the other. And the man is still fidgeting with something in the back seat. Now he's out and he's leaning on the door. And so I'm thinking he's the cab driver. He looked like an Uber driver or whatnot, right? The woman had on, I didn't realize it until after I spoke to her, because I rolled down my window and I was like, these kids are crazy, aren't they? And she looked at me and she was like, what? And when she talked, she had an accent like she was from some part of Africa. And I realized she was wearing a hijab, right? So she must have been Muslim. And the person who was with her was not a cab driver. That was her man, her husband, whatever the case may be. But he was so removed that if the child had gotten into the street, he was so far from the child that, and so just unconcerned. Well, like, okay, we hear all of these men online talking about, oh, well, as a man, it's my duty to provide and to protect, right? Now, we know most households in the United States are 50-50 households, where the woman works and the man works as well. Most households, rather than 50-50, because I don't know what people's bill splitting structure is. Most households in the United States have 2 working parents, or most households with 2 people in it, both people work. That's the sentence, right? So we know that women are working, women are bringing in money. And so what type of protection are the men giving? Remember that Jimmy Kimmel special, or the little segment where it had the fathers, and the interviewer was asking them, oh, what is your child's teacher? What's their friends? What's their birthday? What grade are they in? What's their doctor's names? Etc., etc. So I'm like, okay, if you saw that, you knew that the men were not able to answer none of these questions. They didn't know who the kids' friends were, who the doctor is. Some of the fathers didn't even know what school their kids went to, what was the name of the school. And I'm like, okay, if your child is in trouble, if there are people who are bullying your child, or your child is in a conflict with their friends, you don't even know who their friends are, where their friends' houses are, what type of protection are you providing, and you're not present? I'm talking about even being in the home and not being just involved, not being present with your kids in their lives. And of course, I'm not talking about all, but I'm talking about who this applies to. And I'm like, if something is going on with your child and they're in emotional distress, or need saving, are you even in close enough proximity to save your child? Not even just from a car, but from the emotional turmoil that they may be feeling. What's happening inside your child's school? What is your child involved in when they leave the house? Because so many of these men are talking about, oh, well, we're supposed to provide. And it seems like, I don't want to say it seems like they're doing nothing, but what are they doing? Well, first of all, what provisions are they bringing, right? If the woman is working too, that means that he's just paying his way. The woman's doing the lion's share of looking after the children in most cases. So it's like the father wasn't even close to that little girl, who was, not only was he not close, but even after the incident had taken place, he was just so detached. And so my question is, what protection are they providing? Because if a burglar came in, okay, so maybe they could do some hand-to-hand combat, right? But more likely than not, they're going to need some sort of weapon. If a weapon is involved, is this person trained in how to properly fire and handle firearms? Then there's that. Also, how many of them are not in the home to begin with? I mean, we know what the data shows, that in 70% of the African American households in the United States, the parents are not married, right? Okay, so where is he? If he's not in the house, so if he's in the house, okay, if he knows how to handle a firearm, if he knows how to do some hand-to-hand combat, okay. However, how many of them are even there? There's so many men on the internet who continuously talk about how, oh, these homes are headed by single mothers. Okay. Well, just because you're not with the mother doesn't mean that you cannot be there for your child. How close do you live to your child? Like, I remember when I was in my 20s and I would talk to men about where their kids were, and their children lived in another state. And then when you ask questions, they moved after they had kids. Like, how are you mean, not only are you not protecting your children physically, you're not protecting them emotionally and psychologically. And speaking of which, even in a relationship, far too many of these men think that it's okay to cheat. And I mean, look at some of the posts that I've put up recently. They think it's okay to cheat and just be out there on the prowl. And some of them think it's all right to have multiple women and wives and different households here and there. And with no regard to protecting their woman's heart, protecting the home, the sanctity of the home, keeping the house together with his actions, having fidelity. I mean, I want to hear your thoughts, because I'm like, what protection and provision are they providing? It's like, it is a choice for you to leave your children. They're constantly criticizing the woman who stays in the fight. But where's the smoke for the men who are leaving, and just not even there or involved? Anyway, I want to hear your thoughts. And then, even worse yet, which is worse then? The ones who leave and are not involved, or the ones who are there and are not involved, thereby programming the children that it's normal to just have a husband or a man like a bump on a log? Leave your comments